Alignment works quietly in the background, creating balance. It ensures every element on your slide feels intentional and cohesive. Without alignment, even the best ideas can get lost in visual noise. When done well, no one's actually going to notice your alignment, but they're going to feel it because it lets your message take center stage. But when your alignment is off, even slightly, it can make your slides look unpolished and unprofessional. And that's when distractions creep in. It begins pulling the attention away from your content and ultimately chipping away at your credibility. So today we're going to talk about how to master alignment in PowerPoint, because getting it right can be tricky. And once you know what to look for and where to find it, it's a game changer. You'll spend far less time tweaking your designs and a lot more time confidently refining your message. So let's get started. Alignment in PowerPoint falls into two categories: shapes and text. Shape alignment refers to aligning objects either to each other or on your screen. This can be rectangles, circles, icons, text, or even text placeholders. Text alignment is where things get a little bit trickier. Text follows its own set of rules, which are independent of the shape that it falls into. So this includes margins, indents, line spacing, which all work together to control how your text looks on the slide. When it comes to aligning shapes, we've got a number of options, the two most important of which are aligning to the slide. As you can see, these circles here, as well as the crosshairs in the center, are aligned both in the center and in the middle of the slide, or you can align shapes with one another. We're going to look at both. When it comes to alignment, there is one command that is unsurpassed, and that's the align command. And you can access that by selecting any object on your slide. This can be either a shape or even a placeholder or a text box. And you'll notice what opens up at the top is a Shape Format tab. Selecting the Shape Format tab opens up the ribbon, and on the right-hand side we have the Align command. Looking at the different options within the drop-down, I'm going to focus at the bottom on these two. You'll notice one is grayed out because it's not available, and the other is available, which is Align to Slide. The reason why Align to Slide is our only option is because there's only one object selected, and in order for alignment to happen, there needs to be something we're aligning to, or a reference point. So in this case, the reference point is the object we've got selected and the slide itself. Now, if we select more than one object, such as these three, you'll notice what opens up on the Align commands is Selected Objects. So now we can align selected objects to one another. And what we're doing is actually selecting one of these options, which is telling PowerPoint how to align these. So, for example, if we wanted to align these three objects to, let's say, the right, we're aligning it to the rightmost edge of the rightmost object. And I'll use Control-Z or Command-Z to move them back. And aligning center, we'll do the same thing. And, of course, aligning left or right. Now, these objects are the same width and height. So if we align to top or bottom, they're not going to change their position on the slide because they're already aligned to one another, both top and bottom, and middle for that matter. However, what we can also do is align these to the slide, and we can distribute them so that they are equal distance from each other and from the edges of the slide. And we can do this by selecting Distribute Horizontally. And now you'll notice the distance from the edges of the slide as well as the distance in between each object is the same. And while we have the Align to Slide command selected, we can also align to the edges of the slide itself. So we can either align to top, align to the bottom, or align to the center or even the middle of the slide. Let's take this one step further, and let's take a look at aligning objects inside one another. I'm going to enlarge the size of our center circle. And I'm going to realign this to the center and to the middle. And I'm going to move our objects inside of this circle. But first, what I'd like to show you is what happens if we select two of these objects and we align them to, let's say, the center. Notice I changed the alignment to each other and I aligned to center. Notice it moved both of the objects. It didn't accept the larger of the two as the one with dominance. The objects moved to meet one another based on their relative size. So if I want to align this circle to the center of this object, I have to get the little circle inside of the bigger shape. So I do this by aligning left and then aligning center. But what if I want to align both of these objects, both of these circles, in this larger object? Well, I can get this inside, again, by aligning right. Whoops, excuse me. Align left. But now there's a challenge. Let's say that we want these two objects aligned to the center of this object. There's a couple of ways that we can accomplish this. And moving bit by bit until you can eye it isn't the most effective way of doing that. However, what we can do is use a short-term grouping. So I can select both of these objects, and then I can select the group command. Then I can align these to the center. That's an advanced tip or an advanced technique. Then, if you don't need the grouping any longer, you can ungroup. Go back up to your group commands and select ungroup. Next, let's move on to text alignment. This is where it gets a little tricky. We're going to look at three different text settings in PowerPoint, beginning with margins. Margins can be the most difficult to find, so we're going to start here. And then we'll move on to vertical alignment, and we'll finish up with indents. Now, it's easiest to look at our alignment if we've got some borders around our text boxes. So that's what I've done here. And then I've also left aligned all of our text. And you can notice if you look at all three of these text boxes, particularly the ones on the bottom, we've got some slight differences now in between how the text is aligned, which will help us move through our three different options. And we're going to start right here. In order to open up the area where we can find our margins, we're going to select the text box itself. Additionally, you can also, or alternatively, you can also select the text. So either is fine, and we're going to right-click, and you can select Format Shape. And that's going to open up the Format Shape menu on the right-hand side. There's another way that we can access this menu. Again, if we select the text box, you'll notice that the Shape Format menu, or the Shape Format tab up top, opened up. If I select this and then click on this dialog box launcher, that will also open up the Shape Format pane. In the Shape Format pane, you'll notice there's two options. Shape Options, which is the default, and then Text Options. And if I select it, Text Options is now active. You can see because there's an underline beneath the text. There's also three icons here. So there's a sub-menu. So the default is to text fill and outline. And then we have effects. And then we have what we're actually looking for, which is text box. And that opens up our margins. So now we can see all of our margin options. We're going to focus right here. The left margin, the right margin, top and the bottom. Specifically on this left margin and the right margin. Now this is set to a 0.2. The default for PowerPoint is actually 0.1. And if we want to create a nice seamless look with both of our text boxes, we can set our left margin to 0, and that will ensure everything that we align is on the left. So if we start creating shapes and we want to align everything on one plane, setting the margins to 0 is a really good way of doing that. So let's review the pathway to get there. So we can highlight, right-click, select Format Object, then we head over to our text options, and from there, text box. And that will open up our margins. And that's where we make the adjustments. Vertical alignment's a little bit easier. So vertical alignment, what that's referring to is how the shape appears inside the box it's in. The default is for the text to be aligned at the top of the shape. We get to the vertical alignment commands from the Home tab. Because I have the text box selected, when I select this drop-down right here for Align Text, we see what the options are, top, middle, or bottom. I have already aligned this text to the middle. If I select more options, that will also open up this Format Shape tab. I'm going to realign this to the top to match our margins. And furthermore, while I have this Format Shape tab open, I am going to set my margins to 0. And I'm going to select 0 also for my headline, or my heading text. Now, indents. Indents are a little bit different from margins. So margins is the inside parameter of a shape. Indents are the space between the margin and the text. So, for example, if I look at text options, the margin itself is set to 0.1, but this is obviously a little bit deeper than 0.1. So the way we check this is to head up to our ribbon, and this is also on the Home tab, and there's an option for spacing. This is for line spacing. So this also covers indents as well as the spacing in between each line. We're going to look at specifically indents. So we're looking at the line spacing option. That's what we'll select. And we have our indent before the text, which is 0.2. So if I change this to 0, and then select OK, you'll notice that 0.1 is still our effective margin. So if I'm comparing these three text boxes, there are going to be differences. So I'm going to go ahead and select both of these. I'm going to change my left indent, or my left margin and my right margin to 0, and thereby aligning all three of these. Now, if I select all three, well, 6, and I align to the center, there we go. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found the video helpful. And if you did, please feel free to subscribe to the channel, as well as visit my website. It's my goal not to just teach you PowerPoint functionality, but to help you align your vision with your slide designs. Because when you do that, you can accomplish anything. Thanks for joining.